I think if Donald Trump wants to get involved heavily in issues somewhere else, he should go look at red states, because Donald Trump doesn't have any urgency to deal with Louisiana, which is the murder capital of the United States. He doesn't have anything to say about Oklahoma, which has the worst schools in the nation. Doesn't have anything to say about Arkansas,
Mike,
which has the highest teen pregnancy rate.
Those are crime-ridden too. Those are crime-ridden too. And if the mayor wants to invite
do something about the crime ridden that's happening in Republican
Chicago's a little bigger than Baton Rouge, Mike. Okay.
So that is MAGA Fox News host Jesse Waters getting triggered by Democratic strategist and friend of the show, Mike Nellis, whom I recently interviewed. You should definitely check that out. It was great to hear from him. For the second or third time that Nellis has been on his show, they've become frequent sparring partners, and Nellis triggered him with a series of brutal fact checks, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, Mike Nellis is, he's making the rounds. He's been on Tommy Lauren, Fox News host, Jesse Waters Primetime. He's been on Piers Morgan. This dude is everywhere. He's building up, I think, for a final showdown with Sean Hannity. That's what I told him yesterday on Twitter. He pointed out, he says, I told Donald Trump to stay the fuck out of Chicago and focus on emergencies in Republican cities and states. And Jesse Waters did not like it, which is a bit of an understatement. Waters does not like that, and he actually visibly lost his temper there. We're actually going to go through it because it's a relatively short exchange. Mike Nellis's appearance, most recent appearance on Jesse Waters, from which this clip was pulled, and we'll unpack it together. But Nellis is an extremely good debater, and he's very good at making a point persuasively. You should definitely check out his appearances on Tommy Lauren and Piers Morgan, and this one's pretty good too.
Founder of White Dudes for Harris, Mike Nellis, is here. All right, Mike, 12 days, no murders in Washington. Isn't that a good thing?
Yeah, I think it is a good thing that there's been 12 days with no murders. You mentioned it being a record, though. This is not the longest streak this year that they haven't had any murders. It's been 16. I think the challenge here is that Donald Trump is playing a lot of theater in order to ultimately distract from what he doesn't want to talk about, which is the economy. But at the end of the day, what he's doing, and what I find to be offensive, is he's using Jesse.
I mean, distraction. He talked about the economy for 3 hours at a cabinet meeting today. How's this a distraction? He was elected, one of the reasons, to fight crime, and he's doing it.
Jesse, he's boasting about record tariff intake that the government is taking, but he's not talking about inflation anymore because everything's more expensive. And as I've reminded you on your own program before, Fox's own polling shows Donald Trump is as unpopular on inflation as Joe Biden was at the height of the inflation period.
So you see how annoyed Jesse Waters is, because I love this. Mike has a really good strategy, and I really appreciate it. He understands that liberals and progressives have no credibility with MAGA cultists and conservatives in general, just like they don't have much credibility with us, right? So what he did there, and he's done this repeatedly on Fox News, he's even done it when he's appeared, I think, across Martha McCallum or Dana Perino, one of the less MAGA but still MAGA Fox News hosts. He likes to use Fox News against Fox News. He likes to, use right-wing sources against right-wingers, basically hit them with their own weapons, so to speak. And so he's made frequent reference to Fox News poll, which shows subsequent polls, multiple polls, that show that Donald Trump is underwater on basically everything. And given that his best performing issue has historically been his management of the economy, I would argue it's incredibly unjustified, but that was the polling perception, that was the polling advantage he had, that he has exhausted it. He's been underwater on the economy and inflation for months, as bad as Joe Biden has ever been, according to Fox News. That is a brilliant maneuver for which Jesse Waters has nothing, right? Because as much as Waters, prostrates himself before Trump, he's not going to bite the hand that feeds him. He's not going to say, our polls are shit. Fuck Fox News polls, they're the worst. He's not going to do that. So he reacts with visible outrage because he has no defense against that particular argument.
Stimmy checks out to all these Democrats, they're just not going to cash them, right? They'll send them back in.
What does it say?
They'll send them back in, we'll pay down the debt, and they'll refuse to cash them. Mike, I'm talking about crime. You say it's a distraction.
Sure.
I say it's one of the many.
So right there, he tried to change the subject again. He doesn't want to talk about the economy. I do want to focus, though, on something that Waters said real quick there as to try to close the loop on that without inviting Nellis to respond, which he should have, but he didn't because he's afraid to, is the point about stimulus checks. So Donald Trump has repeatedly discussed potentially using revenue generated from tariffs to fund checks that would be sent to American citizens. I don't know if he'll be able to do it. I would not rule it out, because stimulus checks were sent during the Trump administration and actually during the Biden administration, but first during the Trump administration during COVID, okay? And this was largely a Democratic brainchild because of House Democrats in particular. Nancy Pelosi was the Speaker of the House at the time. Democrats held the majority. They were the ones who really pushed for stimulus checks. But what did Trump do? Trump delayed the checks at a time when Americans desperately need them so he could put his fucking signature on those checks. It was a cynical, disgusting, but in this day and age, brilliant, cynical maneuver by Donald Trump. And anecdotally, we've heard in years since then, Donald Trump sent me money. Donald Trump sent me a check at a time when the American economy was suffering. So even if I don't like him, even if I think he's corrupt, even if I think he's X, Y, and Z, he sent me money at a time I needed it. Now, again, the truth is, it was largely the result of Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats. The Trump White House not only delayed the dispersal of the checks, but also fought the Democrats about the amount and whether to even have the checks at all. So Democrats were largely responsible for it, but Donald Trump understood how to take advantage of and get credit for this maneuver. So I have no doubt that if he thinks he's going to get his ass kicked in the 2026 midterms or the 2028 presidential election, that he will absolutely be willing to pull a cynical stunt like this again. And Democrats need to be thinking about this. And by the way, when Democrats are in power, even President Biden acknowledged this last year, that he should have put his name on more stuff than what he did. Democrats have to adopt to Trump's playbook moving forward. Put your fucking name on everything good and make sure that Republicans are publicly excluded from the credit for anything. Got it?
Things he's been successful at: the border, crime, getting companies to invest here in America. Why does it have to be a distraction? Why can't it just be, hey, he's juggling a lot of balls?
Yeah, he's juggling a lot of balls. And look, I'll give some credit because the numbers are better, but the numbers are better because the military are on our streets. And if you look at the economic numbers in Washington, D.C., you can tell that people don't feel safe in D.C. Restaurant revenue dropped 40%. People don't feel safe to go out to a restaurant.
Mike,
when
you're comparing restaurant revenue from Restaurant Week from a different week. That's been debunked.
No, I'm not, Jesse.
It's been
That's
debunked,
not true.
Mike. We debunked it on the 5. You should watch the 5.
Okay.
You learn a lot.
So they didn't debunk it on the 5. The fact of the matter is traffic and revenue for restaurants in D.C. have indeed objectively been down. Now, if Jesse Waters wants to blame that on something else, he's free to try to do so, but the facts speak for, I shouldn't say the facts speak for themselves because, of course, in the MAGA age, they don't. But Mike Nellis is right and Jesse Waters is wrong. And again, he's trying to blitz right through it, so Nellis doesn't have a chance to respond to it.
But tell me this, should Chicago invite the guard in? I mean, they have a real problem with homicides.
No, look, I think Chicago needs to do a better job of dealing with crime. Our local leaders need to do a better job of dealing with crime. But the city of Chicago has had a chance to vote for Donald Trump 3 times, and he lost by 80% each of the 3 times that he was on the ballot. I think if Donald Trump wants to get involved heavily in issues somewhere else, he should go look at red states, because Donald Trump doesn't have any urgency to deal with Louisiana, which is the murder capital of the United States. He doesn't have anything to say about Oklahoma, which has the worst schools in the nation. Doesn't have anything to say about Arkansas,
Mike,
which has the highest teen pregnancy rate.
Those are crime-ridden too. Those are crime-ridden too. And if the mayor
when's
wants
Donald
to
Trump going to do something about the crime rid that's happening in Republican
Chicago's
states?
a little bigger than Baton Rouge, Mike, okay? And you live in Chicago.
So let's just stop right there. So again, Mike Nellis bringing the facts per usual. Oklahoma, you have that creepy-ass pro-MAGA superintendent fuckwad who should be focusing on elevating Oklahoma schools, and Oklahoma is 49th out of 50th in public education, so he's objectively failing at his job and has no room to criticize any blue state, no matter what their issue with respect to education. So good on Mike Nellis for pointing that out. Also good on Mike Nellis for driving point to home that red states have a crime problem, that per capita crime tends to be higher in red states than blue states. Not that blue states have their issues, but note what Jesse Waters tried to do there. He says, well, listen, those have their issues too. And if he says state and local leaders invite Trump to bring in the National Guard, then Trump should do it. But Trump is bringing in the National Guard to places where state and local leaders don't want it. He's not waiting to be invited. Governor Gavin Newsom didn't invite Trump to deploy the National Guard in California. Mayor Karen Bass did not invite Trump to deploy the National Guard in Los Angeles. And Mayor Bowser of D.C. did not invite Trump to do it in Washington, D.C. either. So when it comes to blue cities and blue states, Trump is happily asserting himself, forcing himself on blue cities and blue states. Jesse Waters is like, well, if red states ask him, why the double standard, especially when red states clearly have a greater need for the sort of intervention that Trump is trying to force on blue states? No good answer to that.
And you should care. Did you hear my friend out there in the monologue talking about her cousin, her uncle, her niece? They're all dead, Mike. Do you care about that at all? Your mayor doesn't care. Your mayor doesn't want any backup. They're offering him more cops, more guard, and he says, no, more housing. What the hell's wrong with him?
Hey, listen, I care about the crime that happens in Chicago, but I also care about making sure that people feel safe. And I know that I'm not going to feel safe in my city if when I take my son to school, I have to drive by a tank. I know I'm not going to feel safe if when I take him to a ball game, I'm going to see armed military members.
Okay, does that scare you to see a tank,
hang on, Jesse,
Mike?
can I finish my point?
Does that scare you?
Jesse.
I'd be more scared of strays, but go ahead.
No, because I'm willing to support, I'm happy to support having more police on the streets of Chicago to help keep us safe. The problem is, in Donald Trump's budget that he signed by the Republicans, he cut community police funding by $2 billion, which means there'll be fewer police on the streets.
Mike, you guys
so Donald Trump
defunded the
isn't
police,
interested
so don't
in
talk
solving
about
that.
cutting
No,
funding,
Donald Trump
okay?
is the one who defunded
No,
the
he
police.
didn't. Everybody knows
Yes,
the
he
Democrats
did.
defunded.
Did Donald Trump sign
They
the Republican budget,
all
Jesse?
over the country, Mike. I don't have
No,
time
they
to
didn't.
debate that, but I respect that you are from Chicago and you want to be safe.
So Jesse does what he does on the 5 when dealing with Jessica Tarlov. Okay, he knows he's outmatched in intelligence and on the facts, so he gets triggered and then he tries to heckle and then he tries to change the subject so as to not invite further rebuke and refutation. But Mike Nellis is right, and Mike Nellis actually humiliated Tommy Lauren, one of Jesse Waters' colleague, on her own show, Tommy Lauren is Fearless, by pointing out that you can bitch and moan about defund the police as a slogan, but that was years ago. And under President Biden, police budgets increased. The Democratic Party increased police budgets, number one. Number two, Donald Trump has cut police funding. So objectively, Donald Trump defunded the police, even though he didn't campaign on it. And actually defunding the police is objectively worse in terms of substance and in terms of what it does to the police than some people in the Democratic Party talking about defunding the police, but not actually doing it. So this is a losing issue, at least on the merits. And good on Mike Nellis for making that case. He did it to Tommy Lauren. He's doing it here to Jesse Waters, and it triggered both of them because they don't like the facts. Great performance by Mike Nellis. Glad to see that he's making the rounds. Definitely check out my interview with Mike. I will include it in the first pinned comment on this video. And also check out his Substack called Endless Urgency. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.